Hello. This is a Reading Rage Live, and I'm alive. And so I just wanted to get on here real quick, do a short movie review on The Watchers. It's been a little while since it came out, and I'm not trying to do any spoilers, but I am going to go into a few things about the movie. So if you haven't seen it, then hopefully you'll go see it. And I will try not to spoil the ending, but yeah, if you haven't seen it, there may be some spoilers in here. I'll just say it. So tune in next time and then go see it. But I would love to share this with you. And it's a radical movie. I love it. It's very feminist, and the main character is someone who you might know. So if you are into like Gothic thrillers, this is a really good one to take like the whole family to, honestly. I think it was PG-13, I'm not sure, but it felt like a PG-13. There wasn't like an excess of gore. There were some cutaways, which made things mysterious as to what was happening to some of the characters. And there was no nudity that I remember. And so it was, I think, pretty safe. It was a thriller. It was scary, but it wasn't like gore, and it wasn't horror per se. And so it was very typical of, I think, the Shyamalans. And if you didn't know, the director is Ishana Night Shyamalan, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. And so you know how they have these twists and turns, and it is very scary. But at the same time, it's nothing that I feel like you couldn't take age-appropriate children to. So I wanted to start out by saying that. So Ishana Night Shyamalan was the director, and not only the director, but also the screenwriter. And this is based off of a book, though, that she didn't write. I think A.M. Shine was the book writer, the author, and so they, I guess, read the book and were really interested, and then made their own movie. And so this is going to be a movie review about that. And yes, today I am drinking Bigelow tea. We are gigolos for Bigelow today. And so we're not sponsored, but you know, Bigelow tea, if you ever want to sponsor me, I shout you out enough that maybe you'd consider it. Today it's lemon zinger. And so lemon zinger is really good because it comes with probiotics. And if you know anything about like Eastern medicine, probiotics are really good for your gut health. And what happens to your gut happens to the rest of your body. And so if you've ever heard about, the humors, it has to do with bodily fluids, and then that also affects your temperament and your psychological, physiological impacts of your body. And so if you get your gut right, man, and you stop eating, like processed foods, and like really watch what goes into your body, then I honestly feel that so much more things will be remedied because of that. Maybe not everything, but quite a bit of things, right? And so if you can go to Bigelow tea section in your local store and get some lemon ginger. And lemon ginger is so good because it comes with those probiotics, which you need for good poops. Okay. So now that I've stopped talking about my little product placement for Bigelow tea, I'm going to go into it. Yeah, so I went over, the director, and now I'm going to go into the cast. So just so that way I can orient you as I'm talking about this movie. So the cast is, the main character is Dakota Fanning, who I would assume you would know. We've seen her in movies such as many movies. And Georgina Campbell is kind of her co-star. Ciara is her name. Dakota Fanning's name is Mina. And then Oliver Finnegan, I'm going alphabetically, if you can't tell, is Daniel. So they're the three out of the four. Those are the main three. And then the last, but definitely not least, is her co-star, and I'm going to pronounce it as best as I can, Olwen Fouere. And I can't pronounce her last name, but if you've ever seen the movie Mandy, she is Mother Marlene. She's like the cult mother that's just bonkers in Mandy. And so in this movie, she's also a mother, but in a very different way. And I'll go into that later. She does have a mother figure, an actual mother figure in this movie. Whereas in Mandy, completely the opposite. She's a cult mother. She's deranged. She is a murderer, completely different, just not the same at all. And so in this movie, her name is Madeline, and she is, I would say, besides Dakota Fanning, she's like the main character. And you see that in a lot of ways they are foils of each other. They are mirrors of each other. And then we'll go into it. So if you're thinking, what is this movie kind of like? What does it remind you of? Well, I would say that this movie reminds me of movies such as The Ritual, Us by Papacito, Dogtooth, Nightbreed, The Thing, Splice, and Alice in Wonderland, obviously. If you've seen the movie, then you know. So The Ritual. Why The Ritual? Why does it remind me of that movie? Well, if you've seen it, and it is on Netflix, so if you want to see that one, it's on there. There's this whole aspect of being lost in the forest, and you also see this, like, not a cabin in the woods so much as like a Gothic, I don't know, sanctuary. Sanctuary is probably not the right word, because in The Ritual, it's like a cabin in the woods, and this one is definitely like if you think of Gothic books, movies, there is a sanctuary, but in a lot of them there is a castle that is where the main character goes to get through the journey of their abject night. And I'll go into that in a second, right? And so that's basically getting through this horrible period in their life, or in that particular instance. And so we see both of those comparisons, right? Where they're trapped in a place, and that place is either cabin, castle, XYZ. Us, the movie Us. Why do I think it's like Us? So loosely, we see that there's doppelgangers. There is a duality between characters. And then there's this race and class metaphor with ethnicities and class systems in a way. Dogtooth. Dogtooth. If nobody's ever told you about Dogtooth, go see it. Go find it. Find it streaming somewhere. It's a rather old movie. Not too old, right? But it's older. And Dogtooth is about cultural norms and breaking those cultural norms, and semiotics, how words will change meanings depending on the culture that you're in, and having to learn while you're there what those words mean, what those cultures mean, why you have to do them, how these feminist characters have to use and or overcome these cultural norms that are presented to them, the abject, the norms that they have to refute, right? And so and like also escaping a Gothic fortress. If you've seen Dogtooth, then I'm not going to spoil it for you, but like that idea of like how to escape this Gothic fortress. And I'll go into that a little bit more later. But Nightbreed, I recently saw this like a year ago. One of my, I guess I'll call him a mentor, had this movie playing, and I fell in love with it. But just this idea of an underground society that's in Nightbreed, and then also in this movie. So having this underground society that you have to learn about, and then really as a viewer, as an audience member, you yourself have to decide the cultural norms that they have taken upon themselves are to protect themselves from society, right? And so though there are murders that take place, they're also defending themselves, right? And so you see that in this movie a lot. I thought that was interesting, and it just brought to mind Nightbreed, but it's not verbatim, it's just like loosely like some certain ideas. And there was a lot in this film, and let me say a lot in this film. It left me wanting more. I will say it. I liked the movie, not gonna knock it, but I did want more. It was very fast. Like they put a whole bunch of stuff into this movie, which I felt like, I don't know. I'll stop there. I just felt like I wanted more information. Like there was some loose ends that I felt like could have been elaborated on. But it was a good movie. It was a very good movie. Okay, so I only have 3 more movies that I think it kind of reminded me of. And I'll say The Thing, right? Because of being isolated in this area and then having to decipher who's enemy, who's good, who's bad, and are they wearing a disguise or not? Are they shape-shifting? Are they blah, 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 blah? And then Splice because of this whole doctor, like God complex type of thing, where there's a doctor who they keep referring to, but you never see until the end of the movie, and trying to figure out if he's good or if he's bad. Was he good or was he bad for what he did and his intentions? And do we even really think about that throughout the film? At the end of the film, rather, once you kind of get to know him more. And I think you really think at the end of the film, at least I did, it's typical like God complex. He wanted to do this research and he wanted to capture these creatures, or at least get proof of them, because he wanted notoriety. But was he good or was he bad? And at the end of the film, I think we're left wondering, and you have to make that decision yourself. Who's really the good and who's really the bad characters in this film, right? And last but not least, Alice in Wonderland. Very, very Alice in Wonderland. So you have this following the White Rabbit kind of idea, and we'll go into that a little bit later, and having to find her way back. So this descending and ascending, going in and coming back out in order to save herself, to find herself, to save others. So we'll go into that. And so those are the movies that I felt themes were incorporated that mirrored those. Love this lemon ginger Bigelow tea. So for runes and Celtic versus Nordic runes, I I'll just say it, haven't done enough research and didn't look at the runes themselves that were in the movie. They referred to the runes and they had them kind of here and there. Obviously, I wasn't filming while I was watching it in theaters, so I haven't gone back to actually see the characters that were used. But it's set in Northern Ireland, or it's set in Ireland. And then she drives to go deliver this parrot, which is ironic because she's a twin, right? And so when she's talking to, or not talking to her twin sister, she's hearing voicemails. It sounds exactly like her. And you don't know at the beginning of the film that she's a twin, but you're like, oh God. In my mind, I was like, could they not afford any other actors to leave the voicemail as her sister? And then later you figure out, oh, she's a twin. So of course they're going to sound really alike, right? So it is Dakota Fanning's voice. And so she works for this pet shop, and she's supposed to go deliver this parrot and to a zoo or their new owners. And she gets lost in the woods, right? Her cell phone, because of like magnetic waves, her phone just stops working and she gets lost and goes into the point of no return, which is her descension into being trapped in this Gothic thriller. And so, and why do I call it Gothic? Why do I call it a Gothic thriller? And like, obviously, I have a few quotes from different scholars that have written papers and books about the Gothic and about feminist theory. And so I do know a little bit about it. And because I've written seminar papers, like in grad school, I wrote several seminar papers on Gothic thrillers, Gothic horrors, and feminist horror theory. So I will go into that now. Why do I think it's a feminist Gothic thriller? And that's why I'm doing this review, because I really enjoyed that we are having quite a few Gothic thrillers and Gothic horrors that are feminist based in theaters this year and last year. We always do, right? That's why we have the genre. But I really liked that it's happening this year, and I wanted to kind of highlight that. So there's this pastoral aspect, right? They're in the woods. So that means that they're going to have a lot of like countryside and like the sublime, like creepy, eerie. And then you see these colors. Let me say, these colors in the film, there's, this gloom about it. There's a gloom about this whole eerie forest and her flashbacks and what she's wearing. And we see this sepia color almost the whole time. So she has this color, and by she, I mean the director, Ishana. Hopefully I can say your first name. Apologize. I think you're younger than me, so I can say your first name. But that would be up to you. Anyways, Ishana Night Shyamalan, she has this color, this sepia color, these golden hues that she uses that I think maybe relating to the trauma that that the main character Mina has suffered, and the color of clothing, her yellow dress that she wore the day of the accident, that traumatizes her for her whole life, and that she has to overcome during her abject night of the soul. And so there's a duality, which I also brought up. So duality means doppelgangers, twins, mirrors, mirror images, and we see changelings. We have the parrot who acts as the canary, and so that parrot's also yellow as well, and canaries are yellow, and so we see this parrot that's always saying, "Don't die," and it adds a spooky sort of atmosphere whenever the parrot says that. And the parrots leading her like the White Rabbit, like the Cheshire Cat. Well, I mean, maybe I'm stretching there, but this physical doppelganger of each other. And then not only do we see a duality in those instances and in that way, we also see a duality in the fact that they are locked in this structure that a doctor made, which has one-way glass. So those on the outside can see inside, but those on the inside cannot see outside. And they're trapped in there at night. They can't go out at night. And in the daytime they can, and they go forage for food and things of that nature. And so it's very much like this, actually. And insert, I always feel like somebody's watching me, and we can't get any privacy. But as they're, yeah, I know, that's my noble sidekick, Helly. Yes, Helly, thank you for your comments. If anybody speaks cat, what he said. So in the nighttime, they have like one videotape or maybe two videotapes or DVDs that they watch, I mean, religiously, because that's the only thing that they have. And it's a reality TV show about, and that's where the duality also comes in. It's very meta. It's so meta. It's incredibly meta. They're in this structure, trapped, just like the people in the reality TV show that they're watching are paid to stay in that one house and date each other or just live together. And I'm sure some of you have seen reality TV shows like that they live together, and some of them fall in love, some of them fall in lust, and they're all watching each other all the time, and they're being filmed all the time. And so the outside world is watching them all the time. Very much like these characters, Mina and Ciara and Daniel and Madeline. They are being watched all the time by the creatures outside. And so not only that, they're learning from these videos, right, of how people are supposed to behave. Daniel is shown to be rather immature. He's supposed to be very naive. He's supposed to be very gullible, and he's supposed to be very young. So he's like the little brother of everybody that everyone's trying to counsel and to make sure he's safe, and that they, are watching over each other. And so we see that, he's probably learning from these videos as well. And they mirror those actions. Madeline, I'm sure, learns a lot from those as well. And so Mina is a woman that's probably, I would say she's in her late 20s, early 30s. Ciara, around that as well, probably in her early 30s. And Daniel is probably in his early 20s to mid 20s, maybe. And then Madeline, who's this older, almost like mother protector figure, who has all this knowledge because she's supposed to have been there the longest in this fortress, is the one that kind of counsels them, coaches them what to do to not anger the creatures outside. And what we see is that they are trapped. And so once they pass this certain borderline, they literally cannot go back on the other side of the border. It almost erases. It almost like completely vanishes, and they get turned around. Very much like the ritual. And could it be because of runes? I'm not sure. Celtic runes and Nordic runes they're not the same. So, but there is that aspect of it that is very similar. So they're even in this fortress that it's called the Coop, right? So we see the parrot that's yellow, like the canary, that she's protecting this whole time. She never leaves the canary. So Mina, the main character, Dakota Fanning's character. And so that's so interesting because we find out later, is an orphan. And then we also find out later that Madeline, the mother figure, the protector figure, who is older, probably in her, I hate aging people. It's my least favorite thing to do. She's probably in her, I feel so bad. I hate aging people. She's probably in her 60s, give or take. Madeline is also, who's played by Olwen. Madeline is also an orphan in a way. And so we see that. And she calls that fortress the Coop, right? So there's all these references to like aviary and birds. And the idea of being caged and having to break free and like finding your wings, right? Finding out how to fly. And we see that this duality of the double, right? If you want to learn more about Gothic theory, Gothic horror, Catherine Nickerson, when she's writing about the true crime genre versus the Gothic genre and how sometimes they can blend together depending on the director or the screenwriter or the author, writes that there is a duality of the double, that you see that. If you remember Twin Peaks, another article that I read had to specifically do with Twin Peaks and the idea of the doppelganger and the double and duality and seeing mirrors of things. And so Catherine Nickerson talks about the duality of the double in her article, Serial Detection and Serial Killers. And then I think it goes on the title. And she wrote that in 1993. So go look it up. And the reason that I really like this feminist portrayal of this main character, Mina, is because she's willing to push the boundaries of what has been set. Because she's not complacent. She's not going to sit there and be trapped. They're like, well, we're trapped here forever. And she's, in her head, she's like, the heck I am. You know, I just got here, but I'm going to try until I die. Like, I'm not going to leave this to just what you say I have to do. I'm not going to follow your rules. I'm going to toe the line as much as I can, but I'm going to use my wit. I'm going to use my observations, and I'm going to go find a way out of here because I'm not willing to just give up my life here. So I saw that the Gothic idea themes of this was also feminist, and the feminist themes that I saw in here, and I'll tell you, was very much women not being able to speak, or people thinking that women misbehave for being outspoken. And so we see the very much like, I wouldn't say the taming of the shrew here, but the idea of the taming of the shrew in essence of women are supposed to be seen and not heard. And if you are speaking, then you're going to get in trouble and it causes a scene. So you need to be the one that's not questioning, don't question, and don't misbehave, right? And if you do misbehave, that is going to follow you throughout your entire life, and that's going to be a blemish and a mar on your character, and that's going to be who you are, and you're going to be a bad person, a bad woman, no less, a bad girl. And so what's actually kind of funny about the Taming of the Shrew idea, which I was thinking about, which I'm not a big fan of William Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, because obviously that was meant for the patriarchy to tell women to shut up, you know? So we don't need to be talking about that too much longer. But what I really love is that Madeline, the actress who plays her, Olwen, I I think I was looking at her credits, like the movies that she was in, because I was trying to figure out what her character name was in Mandy, and I saw that she was actually in The Taming of the Shrew, and I'm sure it was probably like a play or something like that. It didn't have further credits, so I can't tell you which one she was in. But I just thought that was really funny because the shrew, you know what I mean? And then the idea of women not supposed to act up. They're supposed to not misbehave, you know? And so we see that. And if you want to know one of the oldest Gothics, or an older Gothic novel that has to do with, that kind of was one of the first Gothic novels that started that genre, was The Mysteries of Udolpho. And so The Mysteries of Udolpho has a main character who has to, she gets sent away to a castle and is almost raped, is almost murdered, is almost all these things, and then is eventually able to escape, right? And there's this like countryside pastoral landscape and going to a foreign place, right? And then getting trapped there. And so then we see her having to get through her trauma. And so going through this journey through the abject night, and how she gets through her trauma, and how she is able to process what happened to her as a child, and actually has to face this because she has other people that she's putting in danger, other people that she's trying to save. And by risk taking and being a risk taker, she actually does save people. And so the thing that was her hubris, the thing that was what was supposed to be bad about her, actually saves her and others, which is almost like a redemption of the soul for herself because of what happened to her when she was little. She's able to kind of make up for that. And then there's this one point where she descends into a literal pit in the ground and comes back out. But by doing so, it does almost kill them. They have to go seek refuge elsewhere than this main tiny room that they're all locked in with the two-way mirror. And then they learn much more because they have to descend into this like basement area where she's able to unlock some mysteries about the place that they're staying in and the perimeter that they're enclosed in, as far as like the area where the runes are blocking all of them. And so, and the areas where the creatures are. And so because she is a risk taker and breaks the rules, she simultaneously causes these creatures to force them into the basement where she's able to learn about how to escape. But two, they literally break the glass. They break the structure. So you realize that they were able to break it all along, but they wanted to force these people to do what they say, to abide by their rules, right? And so because she didn't abide by their rules, she is almost like a glass ceiling breaker. And that foreshadows her escaping, and that it will happen. And then you see that later that Madeline and her are both orphans. And so they're mirrors of each other. And if you want to know about this term that I keep using, the abject night, read a little bit about Julia Kristeva. Kristeva talks about that, and they're a scholar who I would highly recommend. And so they're able to get out of this enclosure, and it's an open air prison that these creatures and anybody else that comes in those boundaries, geographical boundaries, they cannot escape, right? And so Barbara Creed writes, and I'll just throw this in, about protagonists that are feminist in feminist-centered media, that revolt is not simply about rejection and destruction. It is also about starting over. Revolt is political, it's personal, and it's intimate. And it's so interesting because there is this idea of genocide in the film. There is this idea of warring creatures. There is this idea of like almost like a Berlin Wall, almost like having to discover a hidden away population that's hidden because of everything that's going on in the world. So I don't know if you've heard recently, like the Peruvian Amazon. In the Peruvian Amazon, they're starting to, like, corporations are starting to go in there and drill and tear down things. And this Mashco Piro tribe, Mashco Piro, Piro, tribe, was, after years, decades, maybe like even like many decades, even maybe 100 years or so, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, but after decades and decades of people thinking that this tribe was gone, they had to, from the depths of the Amazon, have now had to leave their homes because it's being destroyed. And so if you look up on Instagram or on YouTube, I'm sure you'll find it, the Mashco tribe, the Mashco Piro tribe in the Peruvian Amazon, that they had to come out of hiding. And I thought that was really interesting, of this idea of this invisible boundary that people are having to escape, or trying to escape, or forcibly enclosed in. Like, I would even say Palestine. And so I don't know if Miss Ishana Night Shyamalan was talking about Palestine in some sort of way, but it definitely is the time for it, about being trapped in an open air prison. And so anyways, I just thought that was really, really interesting, the way that was happening, and how these ethnicities, race is a made up construct. We all know that. It's not real. It was made up so that way the rich could subjugate the poor and the indigenous, right? But that is such an important thing to notice, that in some places that are around the world, they are being subjugated. And there's this idea in Marxism that why do you need a passport if it's not for capitalistic gains, if it's not for, the rich to control the poor, to say that you can't go there and you can't go there. You are a prisoner in your own land if you decide to go live somewhere else. You need a visa or a passport. You don't get to decide if you get to live in a different country whenever you want. You are set to your country. You are a prisoner of your country. Even if you have a passport, you have to go and come back within a certain amount of time. And so it just reminds me of that, and how these cultures in this movie, the Watchers, were at odds, and the human race traps this other race. And they're angry, and they've deteriorated as a people because they have been trapped for so long that this magic is weighing on them, and they're no longer what they once were. And so it's just really, really sad when you think about it. But I wish they had gone into more of it. But it was a very, very quick movie as they went through the details. And so I hope that you really liked it. I hope you liked it as much as I did. And obviously the opening credits, like as the movie starts, Warpaint, the band, Warpaint is playing. And I thank you, KEXP. I love KEXP. They have Warpaint on their channel on their YouTube channel, so you can go watch them live, and they're amazing. So thank you, KXP, for hosting live music all the time in your studio. And that's where I first heard about Warpaint from. And so when the movie started, I automatically knew. I was like, oh, this is a feminist movie. Like, oh, duh. Like these amazing, talented women musicians. And so I won't tell you what happens at the end, or if they escape, or how they escape, or what that means, and who escapes and who doesn't. But I do encourage you to see it yourself. And it was a pretty good movie. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this director does in the future. I hope I didn't forget anything. Tried to write down as much stuff as I could. Keep it tuned, because I have some other feminist Gothic thrillers, some Gothic horror, actually, that I am so excited to talk to you about. I think the next one I might do is Maxine. I'm writing up my review on that, actually, as we speak. And that's totally a feminist movie if I ever saw one. And I think I cannot express how excited I am to talk to you about Maxine. So stay tuned, and really excited to have been able to share the Watchers movie review with you. I hope you liked it as much as I did. If you saw it, and if you didn't, then go see it, man. All right. Thanks. Take care.